Hi everybody, this is going to be the tutorial that's going to show you how to make this V-stitch butterfly shawl. For the basis of this tutorial, I'm going to be using a 5mm hook, which is a H hook for the US, but for the pattern itself I used a 4mm hook or a size G hook for the US, and the yarn cake that I used is from Turkey. I live here in Israel, so but I know I've seen many people use yarn cakes out in the US and all over the place. So I know you can find one. I have a link to where you can buy this one off their site if you want. It's on the pattern page on my site. It is by Yarn Art. It'll have all the information there. It was 1,000 meters. So this isn't just a normal skein. They call it a cake for a reason. It's like huge. One huge skein of yarn that you can essentially make a whole dress from, and the yarn itself is like pack cotton kind of blend, which makes it really soft. And I have this pattern on my site, but it doesn't have the pictures. It just has just the pattern and the video tutorial. Because I'm low on space on my site, I cannot keep putting all those pictures up there. I'm actually having to remove some just to be able to add more. So I will have this on my shops for a very low price, or you can buy it with pictures if you prefer it that way. But the pattern itself is free and on the site, and also the video tutorials. So go ahead and grab your 4mm hook and we'll get started. Okay, to begin your shawl, you want to start by chaining 3. Then using the very first chain that you did, you want to put 7 double crochets worked all in that same chain. The chain 2 now that we'll have, because you did a chain of 3. So these 2 counts as a chain 2, and it will count as a stitch. So that is how many? 3 double crochets. 4, remember we have to do 7 of these. 5, 6, and 7. So counting the beginning chain 2, you now have 8 stitches. Now you want to chain 2 and turn. Now the chain 2 will count as a stitch, but we're still going to put 2 double crochets in this very first stitch, because we're going to need that extra stitch there to make the next row work out. So for this row, you're going to put 2 double crochets in each stitch, and at the end of this row, you should have 17 stitches, counting the chain 2 at the beginning. Sorry, I was looking over at the pattern. I like to make sure I'm staying on point and telling you exactly what you should be doing. Okay, now that you've got them all in the stitches, remember this last chain 2 here in the end may be hard to see, but it counts as a stitch. You want to make sure that you get a couple in there too. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 17. Make sure you have 17 stitches. It's very important. Okay, for row 3, you want to chain 2 and turn. Now using the ending double crochet from row 2, you'll yarn over and you're going to work a front post double crochet onto the post of that ending double crochet from row 2, and that's how you're going to begin row 3. Now the very next stitch, the very next double crochet, you want to skip that one, then move over to the next. So count 1, 2, 2 over, and in that one you're going to put 2 double crochets, and then chain 1, and then in that same stitch put 2 double crochets. So we have 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets, all worked in the same stitch. Now make sure that you find the double crochet that's in, so that you make sure you skip the correct next one, and then in the following one you'll put a front post double crochet on that one as well. Now again, this is the front post double crochet. You're going to skip the next one, and then the following one you're going to work your same peak stitch is what I call it. So you'll be putting 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets, and then again make sure that you find that double crochet that they're worked in, that shell's worked in. Then you'll skip the next stitch, and then the following one again you're going to put that front post double crochet. Really take your time and make sure you put the stitches in the correct one, because from now on you'll be using just the V stitches and the front post double crochets. As you add, you'll slowly add V stitches, but once you get this base row done, then it gets so much easier. So really take your time and make sure you get it in the right stitches. So again, you'll skip the next double crochet, and in the next one you'll work your next peak stitch, and you'll put 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets. Then make sure you find that double crochet that one's in, skip the next one, and then front post double crochet in the next. Then again skip the next one, and then the following you'll do your last peak stitch. Then again you're going to skip the next one, and in your very last stitch here you're going to put a front post double crochet, and you're doing a front post double crochet in that space basically, and then in the chain 2 you'll put a double crochet, and then from now on you're just going to be working on that and putting a double crochet in your ending stitch. You should have 4 sections now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and it should work out all the way to the end just like I did. And that will end row 3. Okay, for row 4, chain 2 and turn. Now all of your front post double crochets are now going to be back post double crochets for this row. So once you do your beginning chain 2, turn it to the back, find that one that we did a front post double crochet on. Well, in the space we did it, so it's harder to find. So basically not the first double crochet, but the second one should be your front post double crochet. You want to do that back post double crochet on that now, because you want to keep all your texture on one side of the shawl. Then you're going to move on over to the center of your V-stitch. Remember we did 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets, so we're going to skip these first 2 double crochets with the peak. We're going to go right into our peak stitch, and we're going to put 3 double crochets, chain 1, and then in that same stitch put 3 double crochets. Then we're going to move on over right to our, you can see it from the back a little better, this is our front post double crochet from last round. We're going to be doing a back post double crochet on that. Then again you'll move right back into your peak stitch, and you'll put 3 double crochets. I'm running out of yarn here. 3 double crochets, chain 1, and then 3 double crochets, all worked in that same stitch. And then again you can find it with your finger from behind. There's your post, your front post double crochet from last round row. You're going to pick that up and do a back post double crochet on it. Then you'll move over to your peak stitch, and you'll continue that all the way to the end of your row. Okay, after your last peak stitch at the end of your row, you'll find I know it's in the same stitch, so it's kind of strange, but find that front post to do your last back post double crochet on, and then in the top of the chain 2 here, you'll put your double crochet. And that ends row 4. And now it's going to be so much easier now, because everything is pretty much clearly defined for you now. So chain 2 and turn. Now this is going to be the start of your repeat. So basically you're going to be doing from what we did for row 1 and on. So for row 5, you'll chain 2, you'll turn, and then you'll pick up that first front post double crochet and put a front post double crochet. Then you're going to be using now, when we have the 3 double crochets in a row, you're going to be using the middle one, and you're going to put a V-stitch in that middle double crochet. Then we're going to come to our peak stitches, and you're going to put a V-stitch in that one as well. Just 1 double crochet, chain 1, 1 double crochet. For this row, for row 5, we're only going to be doing V-stitches with 1 double crochet, chain 1, 1 double crochet. So once we do it in our peak stitch, it brings us up to our 3 double crochets again. Again, you're going to be using that middle one, and you're going to put a V-stitch in that one as well. Then move over to your front post and work a front post double crochet. Then again, come up to the middle again. You're going to put a V-stitch in that middle double crochet. V-stitch in the peak stitch. 1 double crochet, chain 1, 1 double crochet, and then again in our 3, use the middle double crochet and do a V-stitch. And then that'll bring you back up to your front post double crochet that you will do a front post double crochet on. And this is what you're going to repeat for the row. Okay, I'm finishing up my last V-stitch of my row. And then I'm going to go into my front post double crochet, and then do a double crochet in the last stitch, the chain 2 or double crochet, whatever's the very last stitch here. So that's the first row of your repeat. You'll have this is a 3-row repeat shawl. So you'll be coming back to that row 5 whenever you start your repeat again. So for row 6, you'll chain 2 and you'll turn, and again all your front post double crochets are now back post double crochets in the pattern. So you'll back post double crochet onto the back post. Then you're going to move and do a V-stitch in your V-stitch. And then that will bring us into our peak stitch, which is a V-stitch this row. So put your 2 double crochets in the peak stitch, chain 1, and then 2 double crochets. Then again, you'll put a V-stitch in the next V-stitch. Then you'll put a back post on that back post double crochet on the back post double crochet. And this is how you will repeat the row. Your peak stitches are the center of the V-stitches here, so you'll have a normal V-stitch here and a normal V-stitch on the other side of the peak. In your peak, you'll have 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets. Now later you'll have a really long one. Your peaks will be in the center of a lot of V-stitches as it grows, because you'll always be increasing your V-stitch, how many V-stitches you have on row 5. And then from then on you'll be just adding V-stitches in those V-stitches and only working and increasing here in your center. So because on row 5 it's nothing but V-stitches all the way down your shawl, When it's so big, it's hard to distinguish between one V-stitch to the next. So to make it much easier for yourself, and I have it here too. I have the shawl right here actually marked, so I can show you. See how many V-stitches are now in between each peak area? It's a huge amount. And on row 5, it's just nothing but V-stitches, and when you're working on it and watching something, you can easily miss the peak and then go right past it and then have to rip it out. So I learned on row 5, when you have nothing but V-stitches, that you mark on your peaks, mark that V-stitch, that center peak V-stitch. So when you come up to it, again, you're doing V-stitch, 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 you come up to a marker and go, oh, okay, that's one of my peak stitches. So I need to do 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets, just like I showed you here. That's the second row of repeats. But that's just the big one for the second row of your repeats, that you just need to make sure that you clearly marked the row before, so that you know that that particular V-stitch is the peak stitch, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does. Okay, so we're going to keep moving on. And this very first V-stitch is just a regular V-stitch. Then we come up to our peak stitch. So in that space, we're going to put 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets. And I'm running out of yarn, so I can't complete my stitch. Okay. So then the next V-stitch, just put a regular V-stitch in there. And then that'll bring you back up to your back post again. And this is what you will continue for the row. After you do your back post double crochet, you'll V-stitch in the V-stitch, then 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets in your peak stitch, and then V-stitch in your next, and then you'll do a back post double crochet. So continue that to the end of the row, and I'll see you back here in a moment. Okay, so for the very last back post double crochet, and then double crochet in the ending chain 2. Okay, and that ends the second row of repeat, row 6. So for row 7, the last row of the repeat, we're going to chain 2 and turn. You'll be doing a front post double crochet on the front post double crochet. Do a V-stitch in your V-stitch. And then you only have 2 double crochets here, so you're going to put 3 in this peak stitch. And you can even look, this V-stitch one is 1, the next row of the peak stitch will be 2 double crochets, and then the third will be 3. And then we'll be doing another increase by using that middle one as a V-stitch, and then you'll have a V-stitch here and a V-stitch here. So now you'll increase by 1 V-stitch on this side, and then you'll have 1 extra V-stitch on this side, and so you'll have 2 on this side and 2 on this side of your peak after this row. And after every time you do 3 and use your V-stitch here, it'll add another V-stitch. So this is how you're going to be increasing. So it's very important to remember to do a single V-stitch and then 2 double crochets, and then the third you'll do 3 double crochets, and it'll keep you even as well. You chain 1 and then finish your peak stitch by putting 3 double crochets. And then you'll move on over to your V-stitch and do that one. And then you'll do a front post double crochet. Then you will work your V-stitch, 1 double crochet, chain 1, 1 double crochet. Then you will move over to your peak stitch and do 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets, and then you'll do your V-stitch, chain 1, and then you'll do your front post double crochet, then your V-stitch, and you will continue this pattern all the way down until you get to the very end of your row, and then that will end the last row of your repeats, and then you'll move back up to row 5 and repeat rows 5 through 7. Okay, I just did my last V-stitch, then front post double crochet, and then do a double crochet in the ending chain 2, and that will end row 7. And now you can start to see why my husband told me that it looked like a butterfly, and this is why I decided to call these types of shawls. That I want to design more than one like this, and I'm just going to call them butterfly shawls. Anyway, at the end of row 7, you're going to be backing up and starting your repeat of row 5. And it won't be an exact repeat because obviously you're going to be adding more V-stitches in between. But the repeat is basically the exact same, that you'll be repeating those 3 rows. So when you have the 3 double crochets here, and I'll show you. So chain 2, and we're going to back up to row 5. And you'll be doing your front post double crochet in that, your back post double crochet and the back post double crochet. Then we're going to do a V-stitch in our V-stitch, which will bring us back up here to the 3 double crochets. Again, this is where we do our increase on our shawl, so it's important to put a V-stitch in that center double crochet. Then in our peak stitches, you'll also do a regular V-stitch for the repeat of row 5. Remember, it's all V-stitches are done, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. So again, we'll find our middle 3, and in the middle, I should say our 3 double crochets, and in the middle double crochet, you're going to be putting a V-stitch. And then there's our other V-stitch on our row. This is where you'll be putting a V-stitch in all your V-stitches until you reach back up to your back post double crochet. Then you will put a back post double crochet in there, and then you'll work a V-stitch in all your V-stitches until you reach your peak stitch again, where you have your 3 double crochets, and in the center double crochet you'll put a V-stitch. And then in the peak stitch itself, put a V-stitch. And then find the center double crochet of those 3 and put your V-stitch in that stitch. And then put a V-stitch in all your V-stitches until you reach up to your back post double crochet again, and then you'll put a back post in that one. And as you can see, now you can see there's 2 V-stitches before you reach your peak stitch. So soon it'll keep increasing every row that you come back up to the repeat. So again, you'll put your V-stitches in all your you'll put a V-stitch in all your V-stitches until you get back up to your peak again, and then you'll find your middle double crochet to put your V-stitch into. And then in the peak stitch, put a V-stitch. Then find the center double crochet, put a V-stitch. Then you'll put a V-stitch in all your V-stitches again until you come back up to your back post double crochet, and you'll put a back post double crochet in there. And when this shawl got up pretty big, what I would do is as soon as I got done with my peak stitch, like right now I'm doing my V-stitch and my peak stitch, I'd go ahead and do my increase on this side so I wouldn't forget, and my center double crochet here, and then I would pull it up. Then I would let me take this one, and I would pick up my V-stitch here that's part of my peak stitch, and I would just put my stitch in between those 2 and get a little piece of yarn, fold it in half. This is just a small piece of, this is like a tail fold it in half, feed it in, pull the tails through that, then I'd have that marked. Then I would just keep moving on. So whenever I made it back to the 6th row, I would always know where my peak stitch lie. It made it more mindless so that you never have to really worry about it, and you can continue your show and whatnot without having to constantly be worried you're going to miss it and then have to back up. And that's it. That would be the end of the repeat on row 5. Then you'll chain 2. You will always be working in, your front post to front post, back post to back post, and then now you have one V-stitch in this V-stitch, and then another V-stitch, and now your extra V-stitch here. I mean the one you increased with last row. So you have 2 V-stitches now, and then it'll bring you back up to your peak here where I have it marked, and that reminds me that I need to put 2 double crochets in this stitch. Chain 1, 2 double crochets, and then move on, do V-stitch here, front post double crochet, and then when you come back to this, you know clearly that this is going to be the 3, and then you're just going to continue that pattern again and again and again. Let me get this. So that's it, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please don't forget to like and share this video. It helps me out so much. Also, I have an email blast now that if you always want to know what's coming out for me from that week in the way of PDFs, free patterns, tutorials, all that, any news, you can go ahead and go to my site. There's a link down below this video if you just prefer to click that, and it can take you to the page where you can sign up. I also have a board on Pinterest where people pin, designers pin all free patterns, all free crochet patterns. So you can go there to find maybe your next project. It is like 99% spam free most of the time. I also have 2 groups on Facebook. One is called Crochet for the Masses, which is more of like a private closed group. And then there's my public group called Crochet Zone Public, where you can post pretty much anything, for sale or not for sale. It's just get on there and post what you're doing and what's happening. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching.